Hello, everyone. Before we start, let me just say thank you to the organization for preparing this amazing event and, of course, for having me here. And I also want to thank you that's in the other side of the screen that's watching my talk. I hope everyone is safe and secure. So, welcome to this Android, a desktop, and a web developer entering the bar. Don't worry, we're all following the public health measures. And who am I? My name is Carlos Mota. You can find me on Twitter at Mota, and I'm a developer from Portugal. I've been developing for Android for the past 10 years and for Kotlin Multiplatform for the past 4 years. I'm an Android GD. I'm the founder of GDG Coimbra and co-founder of Kotlin Nights. I've been writing at Hey Wonderlick, and I love to travel, photography, and running. I've created a set of materials for these talks. You can find the slides at my speaker deck. I'm going to tweet everything at the end, don't worry. And I've also created two applications. One called Alicers that has the goal to fasten the development with multi-platform and compose. And the second one, and Splash, is the source of the application that I'm going to show you here. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to publish videos, so feel free to subscribe to know more about Android, Kotlin, and Compose. So a brief history of time. Imagine that you have an amazing app idea and you have a group chat with your tech friends, and you're going to say that I have a great app idea. And suddenly, because these are your tech friends, someone is going to say, great, are you going to do it natively? And you've got a lot of tech friends there. So someone is going to say natively, you can use Xamarin instead of Android and iOS. Instead of Android, you can get iOS for free. And then you're going to have someone from Flutter that's going to say, for that, you should use Flutter. It has a better performance. And if I'm on that group chat, well, it uses Dart. You're already familiar with Kotlin, so why don't you try Kotlin multi-platform? And then someone from the web will reply, you've been using Reactive Native and it's great. And then 12 other people are going to have their own opinion about how you should develop your app. So how to develop an application? Of course, I'm going to suggest you here to do with multi-platform, but any of these solutions might make sense. It depends a lot on your team, the requirements that you have, on the project itself. So, depending on the team background and size, if you've got a bigger team, perhaps it makes sense to have someone allocated to iOS and someone allocated to Android. If you have a smaller team and you don't have a budget to allocate more people to your team, perhaps you need to think about a cross or a multi-platform solution. Also, the project type. Are you going to develop a project that's going to last a couple of months or it's a couple of years? Because what happens if the framework will stop being developed in 2, 3 years? Are you going to rewrite the entire project or are you going to give support to the framework and to your project? And of course, there is always time and budget constraints. Are you already behind schedule? Okay, once again, can you hire more people to help you do the project? Can you learn a new technology, how to work with a new framework? These are all things that you need to think before selecting any of these solutions. Of course, there are common disadvantages to all of them. For instance, you're framework dependent. Imagine, and this happened to me a couple years ago, there was a huge redesign on iOS, and I developed one application using one of these frameworks. So basically, when users, and in iOS 80% of the users apply to the new OS version. So 80% of my users were still seeing an old application because I developed using a framework and the widgets didn't update. It wasn't native. So I needed to wait a couple of months for them to launch these new widgets. My application needed to be compiled and the users need to install it. And I lost around 60% of users during this time. And of course, those users that didn't update were still seeing the new version in the old OS version. Sometimes there are missing features. If a feature isn't available for Android and iOS, typically they don't implement it. You need to do it. You have a slower performance, you have a bridge in between. Some of them are going to be a bit faster, others a bit slower, but you've got a new layer there, so you might expect some delay. And once again, you're committing to one framework. Of course, I'm going to give you my suggestion for this. Spoilers. It's going to be Kotlin multi-platform. First, it's Kotlin. So you're going to take advantages of the language that you already know if you're coming from Android, and you're going to take advantage of all of these language features that Kotlin gives you. It has a low risk because Contrary to the other cross-platform solutions, you can decide what you want to share. You don't need to share everything. You can just share a specific feature, and if it makes sense, you keep adding new features to be shared. So you have a low risk on doing this. You have consistency across platforms because you're going to share your business logic. You're going to share this across Android, iOS, desktop, web, etc. It also means that if you're going to have a bug, you're going to have a bug on all platforms. But if you fix this issue, you're going to fix an issue on all platforms. And of course, you have a really strong community support. The Kotlin Link Slack is an amazing community there. And if you have any question, people answer to you in a couple of hours. So let's talk a bit more about Kotlin Multiplatform. The goal of Kotlin Multiplatform is not to share everything, the UI, the business logic, no. The goal of Kotlin Multiplatform is to share only your business logic. Let's see this example. Imagine that you want to develop an application for Android, iOS, web, and desktop. Typically, you're going to do the view, then the presentation layer, then the model, the parser, the network, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing for all the other platforms. So what we want to do is instead of rewriting your library, your business logic over and over and again, we want to share everything and write it only once. Instead of doing things on Android with retrofit and with iOS on Alarm of Fire, I want to do it once and having it available on all of these platforms. Of course, you're always going to have code that needs to be platform specific. And don't worry, because Kotlin Multiplatform got you covered. For instance, imagine that you want to show a string, a text on your screen that says allow Android if it's running on Android, allow iOS if it's running on an iOS, allow desktop if it's running on a desktop, allow web if it's running on a web. So the way to do this, and if you see here, I'm on a specific folder called common main, it's to use the keyword expect. You expect someone is going to define what name is. So if you're targeting Android desktop and web and GS, you need to say what expect is. So if you press Alt Enter, it will automatically create your classes. And here you moved to Android main, a different folder inside your shared model. And here you're going to say actually, you use the keyword actual, name means Android in Android. So use the keyword expect on the common main, and you use the keyword actual on Android and of course on desktop and on web. With this, when you're running your application on Android, you're going to see allow Android, on desktop allow desktop, and in web allow web. So trying to sum everything here, if you're going to write a shared model, you create it on the common library, on the shared library, use the keyword expect, and then use the keyword actual on all the platform specific code. And then you can compile it for IRs, for GS, for a framework for iOS, etc. So how to develop an application? You're going to use multi-platform, and now we're going to use a bit of Compose. Compose was become stable, let's say, this year. And of course, if you go to the Compose website, you're going to see a lot of really cool keywords. It's going to say less code, intuitive, accelerate development, powerful. And this is all true. I've been developing with Compose for quite some time. And to be honest, I've been developing applications quite faster than I used to do with XML. And happily, I don't need to worry about that find view by ID that's awful. But there's more to Compose. Jake Wharton tweeted this a couple of months ago that he was using Compose on iOS, and I immediately became, okay, but how? And then I dived in and noticed that, once again, there is more to Compose that we thought there was. So if you go to the Jetpack Compose, you're going to see that there is a compiler, a runtime, a UI, a foundation, a material, and animation libraries. And if we move this to an high-level diagram, we can see that the Compose UI, foundation, material, and animation are part of what we can call Compose UI Toolkit. And then we've got the Compose compiler, and this Compose compiler is written in Kotlin. Okay, it's responsible for transforming the composable functions that add composable into UI. It's really cool because it doesn't use the notation processor, so your builds are still fast, and it doesn't know what the UI really means or what really is. It doesn't know that you're running on Android or it's running on iOS or the desktop. Then you have the runtime that once again is also platform agnostic. It doesn't know what Android is, and basically is a tree management solution. There are side projects, let's say, that are using Compose, that they're just using it for the stream management solution that runtime libraries provide. Of course, after this, there is the animation that allows you to create beautiful animations with a few lines of code. There is the material, that is the material design system that you can use on components, the foundations to use column, text, image, etc. And the UI. It's the UI. It's where you when you add text on your keyboard and it appears on the screen. So if we split both, we have the compose that we can call runtime and compiler, and then we can have the UI toolkit for Android, desktop, Raspberry Pi, web, console, etc. And this is really cool because last month there is Compose Multiplatform. It was announced by JetBrains that the beta release was announced, and basically this means that you can use Compose on desktop and the web. So let's get back to the title of this talk and Android, desktop, and web. I've created a really simple application here. Basically, this application, what it does is it fetches the most trending images from Unsplash. So it has a network request. It then shows them here on the app. It has overlays, shows text, image, etc. You can search for a specific topic. In this case, I've searched for Portugal. These are pictures from Portugal. And you've got a navigation bar where that you can select to go to about or to your home screen. I've then grabbed this code and make it work on desktop. And in the end, I basically shared everything. So instead of copy paste code, I just shared it and have my desktop application running. And you can see that it's a desktop because I can increase the window size. And after this, I try to do the same thing for the web. The web, it's a bit different, but you can use Compose in the web without any major issues. So the big question is, now that you've got Android app ready, how quickly can you have the desktop and web apps? So what you're going to do here is to use the Kotlin Multiplatform to share your business logic and Compose to share your native UI. So let's start. You can use Kotlin Multiplatform in a lot of targets. You can use it on Android, iOS, macOS, watchOS, JVM, GS, etc. There are a lot of libraries that you are going to need to use for multi-platform. These are the most used ones. From Kotlin X, you've got coroutine, serialization, datetime, etc. For network, you need to move to Ktor. For storage, for instance, SQLite. And there is a really big list created by Akira that's called the Kotlin Multi-Platform Libraries. So if you're looking for a specific library that doesn't exist, go see this GitHub because perhaps someone already published there a version that a library that you can use. How to start? Quite easy. You just need to install the KMM plugin on Android Studio. You create a new KMM application. KMM means Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile, and immediately you have a project working for Android and iOS. So if you open the build.gradle file, this will be something that you're going to see. If you now want to move for desktop and the web, you just need to add JVM and desktop, and then GS that's going to use the IR compiler and is going to use the browser. Since you cannot use your Java libraries or your Android libraries in Kotlin Multiplatform, you need to migrate your retrofit, for instance, to Ktor, which is a network library that we typically use on multi-platform. So for this, you need to use the client core for common main, and then don't forget that you're targeting Android desktop and GS, so you need to set these clients on, in this case, on Android and GS. Migrating for SQLite, you need to use SQLite and add Android driver, native driver, and SQL GS driver. And if you're using Kotlin X serialization, just need to add it on common main. Of course, this is sounding really, really simple, but you need to migrate all the API calls. Okay, all the calls that you're making, they need to be done using these libraries. The big question here: do I need to refactor the entire project? No. And this is great, and this is what makes great Kotlin Multiplatform. You don't need to to commit your entire code base to Kotlin Multiplatform. For instance, these are a couple of applications that are on the store that use KMP differently. For instance, Space from JetBrains uses the entire project is Kotlin Multiplatform. Cache App only shares the business logic. Yandex Map share their business logic and wrappers for C++ libraries. So different applications share what makes sense for them. My best advice here is start small. Imagine that you're going to develop a new feature. Try to do it on multi-platform. You need to implement some tests. Why not doing them on multi-platform? You need to refactor some part on the app. Okay, let's try to do it on multi-platform. And if it makes sense, keep adding new things to multi-platform. If your team likes multi-platform, if you feel that you're speeding up your development with multi-platform, do it. What challenges are going to find along the way? Well, not all the libraries that you're using exist on cross multi-platforms, and those that exist might not support all targets, meaning that they might support Android and desktop, but there is no version available for the web. Sometimes they're not available with the latest Kotlin version. You need to wait for someone to update. The initial project setup requires some time. This is why I've created a template project called Alicers that you can see, because sometimes just a small configuration might increase a lot your compilation time and might make you have some compilation errors. The generated library for GS needs to lose some weight. The generated file for the web, the GS file, it's a bit heavy. It can gain several megabytes in the process. Talking about Compose, the best way to start Compose to me is just to start developing your Android application. If you're not familiar with Compose, just try to use Compose on Android and then move it to desktop and then to the web. To use Compose, you're going to need to use a bit of Kotlin multi-platform because we're talking about different platforms here, and sometimes there are functionalities that aren't available out of the box, let's say. So once again, the big question, do I need to refactor the entire project? Simple answer, no. Compose is interoperable with XML, so you don't need to rewrite your entire app with Compose. You can still use XML. Once again, start small, start adding new features and see if they make sense for you and if your team can move to Compose. What challenges are you going to find? Once again, the initial setup is quite challenging. So sometimes you need to use the Compose plugin from JetBrains, other times you're using the Compose plugin from Android. You should use the Compose plugin from JetBrains to avoid duplicated classes. The plugin already checks which libraries you should use. Also, adding the wrong configuration here might increase your build time a lot. Once again, there is my template Alicers, feel free to check it out. Libraries depend on the Compose version. These already existing on Android, so you need to wait for a Compose version to update your Kotlin version. The same things happens with this JetBrains Compose for desktop and the web. Once again, not all features are available for desktop and web. For instance, internalization, fonts, and other resources, you need to give this support for yourself. Live data, view models, etc. aren't available directly. You can have it through third-party libraries. And web, it's still in its initial stages. Not all composable functions are really ported to the web. If you want to use them, you need to do it yourself. How to solve these issues? One of the best Compose libraries is called Accompanist. It has a lot of sub-libraries in there that really eases your development. You're going to develop applications faster if you're using these libraries. You've got the pager, the swipe to refresh, a lot of these libraries. Unfortunately, if you're going to see the issues on these libraries, that it's currently not supported with desktop and web, at least for now. But thankfully, we have an amazing community, and there is a Accompanist version that exists for desktop. Unfortunately, this version only works for desktop and not Android. So if you want to share the code, you'll need to make some tweaks. For instance, if you open the Accompanist library from CR10, you're going to see that it's not exported for Android. The fix is quite simple. You just need to add the plugin for Android and then say that you're going to publish an Android library. After this, you just need to define the source sets for Android and desktop, and then define how the application should be compiled, which SDK, the default config and compile options. And with this, it works with Android and desktop. For image loading, if you're familiar with Coil Compose, you can't use it because it uses a lot of Android and Java. So once again, community to the rescue. You've got an amazing library that you can use, Camel. It's being continuously updated with the latest versions of JetBrains Compose, and it works really, really good. Moving to resources, I've mentioned that sometimes you need to implement code for Compose if you're sharing everything following multi-platform. This is a really great example for this. Imagine that you want to share an image. Typically, you would do something like this. You'd use the composable images, you define the painted resource, you access the R drawable IC launcher, the resource file that contains the reference for this drawable, and then you set the content description. Unfortunately, the way to do this on desktop, well, desktop doesn't have our resource file, so we'll need to use expect actual for this. The thing that I talked on the beginning for multi-platform, you need to do that. So you start by creating a composable function and you're going to use the keyword expect. So for the icons on the bottom of the navigation, the home and about icon, you're going to say, okay, this is, I expect someone is going to define what I see about is, and this is a painter. Painter is a type of class of object. So if you go to Android, you're going to say actual I see about means that I'm going to use painter resource and send the R drawable I see about. But if I'm then going to the desktop, instead of using the painter resource with the resource file, the R class, I'm going to send the full path because desktop doesn't has a resource R class. If you want to use live data, you can use the pre-composed library by Talster that works really, really good. And I've been saying that a couple of things aren't available yet on the web, and this is true. So web, at least on my point of view, it's still on its initial stages. The paradigm is quite different. They're more focused on DOM rendering than having everything available. For instance, if you want to have a column with an image, you still need to use divs, but these divs have been ported to compose. Of course, the same thing applies to style. You don't have a modifier here, you need to use style. Of course, you can once again do things with multi-platform, and for that you can create a composable called column that contains all of this logic. But then this is going to take you a lot of time to do this for Android, for desktop, and for the web. So, a brief information about the web. Sharing logic works without any major issue. You just need to use minimize and compress for the generated GS file. Sharing the UI, at least in my opinion, is not yet ready. It's really cool to know that this can be done on the future, and perhaps in a couple of months you can give it another try. Getting everything together. So Kotlin multi-platform is more than stable. It works pretty well, although it's still on alpha or beta stage. Compose for Android is more than stable. Compose for desktop is alpha, it's beta. For web, in my opinion, it's not still there. There are a couple of documentation and samples that the community is creating and even JetBrains is creating. But once again, this is not yet stable. So there are things that the best way to ask it's on Kotlin and Slack, and the community there is really helpful. A couple of resources. If you want to know more about Jetpack Compose, you can follow these links. One is from the samples at Android GitHub from Google, and the other from JetBrains. There is also the Compose playground that you can see with images how things work. There is the Jetpack Compose internals book, and of course, what I've been mentioning, the Kotlin link Slack. And also, feel free to send me a message to DM me if you have any question. I'm more than happy to answer you and to help any way as I think it's possible. Once again, thank you for assisting to my talk and see you around.
Right. Hello, everybody, and I would like to thank the organizers of this program for the opportunity to actually speak at the event. And as you can see on my screen, I am Mr. Ajiboye, a program associate at Decacorn. And for today, my topic is building digital products. So let's dive right in. Yes, so what is product management? I'm sure a lot of us have actually been curious. We must have been saying product management around. We know that, okay, there's actually something called product management, but we really do not have an understanding of what product management is all about. So, product management is actually about identifying and defining problems, right? So, it is not just good that there are problems, but product management has come to task itself with that responsibility of identifying what these problems have for the users and defining the problems, because there is no way you want to provide solutions to these problems without first knowing what the problem is and defining it the right way. So product management actually is about identifying and defining problems and also proffering solutions to these problems. And there are people called product managers, right? These are people that are vested into the field of product management, and they're usually known as the CEOs, driving the development, launch, and improvement for their features and products end to end. In other words, product management managers are actually involved in the whole life cycle of a product, right? And product management managers also answer the following questions. They answer the question of what are we building, that is that solution they want to prefer to to the problem, what is it. They also answer the question of who are we building for, which is the target user. They also answer the question of why are we solving this problem. They need to know why, right, so that they'll be able to tell the benefits this would give to the users. And finally, when are we building this, right? So yes. And in product management, if we have to build digital products, we have to understand that there are some things called monopolies. The likes of Google, the likes of Facebook, the likes of Amazon. If you as a developer or if you as a person, you have this idea that is very, very related to Google, and there's one particular thing that you have in your own idea that you feel if you should put in your own idea, you'll be able to measure up to Google's skill. Truth is, it will be very, very difficult for you to get up to the level at which Google is currently because of that monopoly that Google kind of has, right? And that will take me to the next thing, which is about breaking software monopolies. So, in breaking software monopolies, it is all about making our product very, very defensible. Now, defensibility is actually a spectrum. So, what does this mean? It means that, for example, if we have an idea, we have a business idea or a product that we would like to build, when we start off, right, the product is actually at a stage of indefensibility. That is, competition can easily come and sweep us out of the market. Then from the indefensibility, it gets to the defensibility level, and finally, it becomes a monopoly. That is, you be the other person operating in that system. Now, how do you make your business defensible? Truth is, if we want to build digital products, we have to ask ourselves the questions that, okay, this product, I want to build it in such a way that even in the future, if I have competitors, I will still be able to remain in the market, just like we have Google and Facebook that I already mentioned earlier. So one way to make your product or your business defensible is one, you have to own a finite resources. And finite resources means you having the likes of land and intellectual property or even a talent, right? If you have these things, rest assured that yes, it will be very, very easy for you, for your business or for your idea to be defensible. Another thing is you have to operate within a network that is apt to live. An apt to live network is a network that you know that yes, everybody needs this to survive in a way. An example is power, an example is social media, an example is telecommunication because people will always want to communicate with each other. Now, the good thing is that software is actually unique, right? And that is why you as a developer, you as a product manager in the software space, it is very, very easy for you to actually be able to be successful in this field. Why? Because software is very, very unique, and by uniqueness, it means that there is this feel of personalization, right? The way by which I, as a user of Netflix, feels is different from the way my friend, who is also a subscriber on Netflix, feels, and that is what personalization is about. That the software gives different feels to different users, right? Another thing is that the cost to copy is very, very, very easy. That is, software has low marginal cost to copy because most of these things are built on chips. And finally, it enables faster network effect, right? Now, for us to make our software defensible, there are two ways, there are two key things we can do to make our software defensible. And the first one is bundling. Now, bundling is about adding value to an already existing product. For example, when WhatsApp came out, right, WhatsApp started with just having the chat feature, right? The only thing we could do on WhatsApp is that we can only chat with our friends. But along the line, the creators of WhatsApp added the feature of video call, they added the feature of voice call, they added the feature of the WhatsApp group. We now even have something called WhatsApp business, right? So that is an example of one thing because they've been able to add value to this product over time. Now, another way by which we can also make software defensible is onboarding, right? And onboarding is just a way of extracting a standalone feature. Now, a very good example of that would be the Facebook Messenger. We all know when Facebook was newly launched, The only thing we could do was, okay, yeah, we'll have a profile picture, we'll chat with friends, we can connect with people all over the world with location not being a limit, right? But along the line, something came, which is the Facebook Messenger. So truth is, myself personally, I can choose not to be on Facebook, but I will still be able to reach out to my Facebook friends via the Facebook Messenger. So Facebook Messenger has come to be like a standalone feature, right? And that is the good thing about breaking software monopolies. So, in order for you to break software monopolies, you have to ensure that you are operating in a network that is hard to leave, and you are also having these two key things in mind, which is bundling and onboarding. So, the next thing I'm going to be touching on, which is very, very curious, which is very, very important for us to take note as builders, people who would like to build digital products, is branding, because branding is very, 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 very important. And so, what then is branding? So yeah, branding is actually very, very key for us as builders, right? Because truth is, one thing that has helped Google, one thing that has helped Facebook, one thing that has helped the likes of Amazon over the years, even AT&T, which is the largest telecommunication company in the world, is that they've been able to have this brand feel to their users. Now, why should we care about brands? We should care about brands because brands helps us to delight our customers in a hard to copy, matching, enhancing ways. What does this mean? This means that, for example, because I'm somebody who uses a particular product, right? Even if a competition comes in the market, but because that product has been able to consistently, I've been able to consistently maintain that first impression I have with them over time, and they've even added value to their product, and they've even probably given me better value proposition for their product as developers or as creators or owners, right? So because of that singular reason, I would not want to leave them for another competition in the market. And that is why branding is very, very key for us as um, developers in the space. And one thing that is interesting is that add to copy is very, very possible. Why? Because of economies of scale. Economies of scale is just talking about how that you having you having enough people operating in your product, you having enough people that are using your product, right? Kind of like gives you an edge over somebody that is just coming up because they usually do not have the number of users. An example of that is Google, right? So Google already has that money that even you as a new competition, if you are just coming up, they have that money to even buy you and add your own idea to their company. So that is why um, add to copy is very, very possible because of the economies of scale. Now, another thing is the network effect. So the network effect is more like the number of users that already have on your product. The more users you have, the more you are able to maintain your network effect over time. And finally, unique technology and personalization, like I said, right? Different product gives different feels to different users because users have different characteristics, they have different ways they feel about a particular product, and that is why branding is very, very key to us as builders in the space. Okay, so what then is a brand, right? So a brand is actually a story that builds a trusted relationship between customers and products, right? So brand includes positioning, that is how we are able to position our product in the mind of our customer, the benefit the customer is getting from it, the personality, that is how they feel about using our product, and aspiration and emotions, right? And there are two brand models, and the first one is the positioning model. The positioning model is all about you positioning your product in the mind of your customer. And for you to successfully do this, you have to be able to answer this question: what is it that is what is this product that I'm shipping to the market? Another thing is, what are the benefits, right? And that is why being a product manager, it is not all about just building products. You have to ensure that you are building the right product for the right persons, right? Because it doesn't make sense that you have a product and your users can't even benefit from it. An example of it is the Google Lens. When the Google Lens was produced back then, right? Today we no longer have Google Lens in the market because basically the people that were behind building that product did not really make the research. They didn't make the research to really know if this is a product that the target users would want to use, and that is why that product failed. right? So, and the final thing is, what is its personality? Personality is more like, what how does it make me feel, like I've been saying. Then the second brand model is the brand pyramid model. Now, this brand pyramid model includes the product attributes, that is the characteristics of the product benefits, the emotional benefits, and something bigger. Something bigger is more like when you've been able to successfully give your product the right attributes that your users want to see in the product, when you've been able to equally solve their problem, you've given them the right benefits that they want, and when you've been able to appeal to their emotions, that is, you've been able to win their hearts, you have this first impression that yes, that makes them want to stick with you for time. Truth is, if we've been able to successfully answer those questions with your product, you'll be able to dent the universe, and that is where the something bigger comes in. Now, the power of a brand, the good thing about branding is that it provides the product team with the tools needed to create a consistent experience as the company grows. Truth is, one thing that has helped Google, Facebook to be what they are today is because they've been able to consistently build that initial proposition that they gave to their users over time. Truth is, if Google did not, for example, now, if Google has not been able to maintain that brand feel they gave to us, a lot of us might not be using it today. Truth is, Google is not the only search engine. We have the likes of UC browsers, we have the likes of Opera Mini. But what makes Google stand out is that brand feel that we all have whenever we are using it. Yeah. So that is that. Now that will take me to the next thing, which is that will take me to the next thing, which is prioritization and overcoming biases, right? Truth is, prioritization is very, very important to us as a product manager or even developers in the space. Now, what is prioritization? So, prioritization is actually the central, most important task for a product manager, right? As a product manager, right, the success of a product manager is actually in the success of the product. And the success of the product is determined by you as a product manager, you being able to build the right products for the right people at the right time. These three things are actually very, very important to you as a product manager. And you being able to ensure that you build the right product for the right people at the right time, that is where prioritization comes in, right? So, and in prioritization, for us to successfully build a digital product, we have to make sure that we have some things in place. And the first thing is we should not prioritize features, but also learning and time. What does this mean? This means that don't just focus on building the features, like don't just focus on having your MVP and shipping it out. No, right? Also prioritize learning and time. Have consistent, keep having prototypes, keep experimenting like every day or almost every week. Make sure that they're experimenting. Experimenting what it actually does is that it helps you to learn very, very fast, and it helps you not to waste time at all on building some set of features that would at the end of the day not work. Now the next thing you should focus on is don't just focus on your customer want, but the team's need, right? This is very, very key because sometimes product managers tend to just focus on, okay, this is what my customer wants. They just go ahead and build it, and they don't really even care about their development team, right? It's very, very important for you as a product manager to care about your development team so that you don't actually work these ones and they eventually become burnt out rather. Do we get? So focusing on the customer wants, don't I'm not focusing on customer wants, but the team's need also. What this means is that, for example, during the eliciting requirement stage for you as a product manager, it is usually good for you to go on with the requirement eliciting phase with your developer and your designer on seat because that would actually help to know if the features your customer wants in their product is actually something that is feasible or not, right? So in a situation whereby what your customer wants is not feasible and your developers say that it is actually not feasible, it's actually very, very important to you as it's actually very, very wise to you as a product manager at that point to actually sit back and really look critically into that features. Don't try to force things down on your development team just because that is what your customer wants. Now that is what that means. And that is very, very important in prioritization. Now the next thing is don't build on rate return on investment matrix, but work on the obvious. Truth is, while we are planning the sprint, trying to think of the features that should be built in a particular sprint, we might have missed out some features that when we eventually start building in that sprint, we'll realize that okay, this feature is an obvious feature that we should have in this feature and that we should have in this sprint. But because we are bent on okay, return on investment matrix very very key to us, we will not add that feature. No, add that feature, right? Because it is an obvious features for us to have. And finally, don't work on improving your product, but the process as well. And that is where your sprint retrospective and sprint review comes in. After every sprint, after every launch, after every successful product that you've shipped out there for your users to use, make sure that you try to review the process, try to go back in retrospect, just ask questions. What can we do better? What are the things that we didn't do well? All those questions which actually help you when next you are planning for the next sprint. Because for the next sprint, you also have to prioritize your features. So asking those questions and trying to improve on the process as well would also go a long way. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about now is overcoming cognitive bias. Truth is, for us to be successful at building digital products, as product managers, we have to understand that there are some biases that we have, but we really do not know that we have them. Why? Because they are biased, right? We can't change that fact. We can't actually change that fact because every human beings tend to be biased based on one or two factors. And one of the type of biases that we have is the authoritative bias. So what does the authoritative bias mean? The authoritative bias is talking about probably a person in a senior position trying to impose their features on you. For example, if the CTO of the company or the CEO of the company wants to see a particular feature in a product, but we see that that feature, the customers do not really need this feature in the product. We tend to want to include that feature to the product because it is coming from the CEO or it is coming from the CEO and the CTO, right? So that is an example of authoritative bias. Now, the other type of biases that we have is the survivorship bias, which is just about concentrating on customers most active with our product and leaving out those ones that are not active, right? Another one is the reputation risk, another one is the affinity bias, and finally the confirmation bias. So those are the different types of biases that we tend to have as product managers in the space. Now, finally for today, I'm going to be walking us through an example of how we can successfully plan and build a digital health product. And while building a product, it is important for us to actually do a thorough research, right? We should know who our users are. Truth is, our users, they have different personas, they have different characteristics, there are different types of users that we have. So know who you are building for, right? Know the type of problem that they have. That is very, very important. Know your user types, know their personas. Now, check for usability errors. Are they having errors while they're trying to perform a particular function on the product? Now, check the outcomes. The outcomes is more like getting feedback from them. How do they feel about using your product? How many star rating did they give your product? These are things that you really need to um, make sure that you devote your time to studying your users, right? Another thing that you want to consider is technology. Technology is very, very key in terms of quality and high standard. Make sure that the technology you're using is of quality and it is of high standard. Another thing is the interoperability, which talks about the ability for your technology to be able to share um, be able to share information to another um, device, right? So interoperability is talking about because we want to build a digital health product, we have to understand that okay, this digital health product that we are building, can my user actually transfer his health records from this product to another product? Or to can I transfer it from one of the features on my product to another one, right? And when talking about users for a digital health product, we have different types of users because there are different people who are going to have different health issues, right? Somebody might have a migraine, issue. Somebody might have malaria, the other person might have maybe sickle cell or something. Those are different types of users. So you have to be able to know these types of users, right? And it is not just the patients that will come and use your product. Your doctor too is another user. The hospitals that are going to sign up on your device is actually another user, right? So these are the type of users, and that is why you really want to know them. You want to know their characteristics. You want to know their personas, and where interoperability comes in is in your ability for your product, right? Can that your health product, can that easily access the medical record of the patient that has come on board to sign in? Can they easily access it from another similar product? Or can my user easily get it? Or can a doctor who is signed up on my app easily access the record of the patients that I have using my product? Now, the last thing you want to consider under technology is the regulations, right? You want to check the regulations. Truth is, for a country like Nigeria, if you are building an app, if you are building any product, make sure that you have somebody who really knows the law, who knows these policies and regulations on your team, right? And the health space is a very, very important space whereby we have to ensure that your product is the type that can actually keep people's secret, right? People's secret is actually very, very important. So these are things around regulations that you want to consider when you're building a digital health product. Now, the final thing is the go-to-market strategy. So the go-to-market strategy is more like talking about the way by which you're going to receive payment. Who is paying? Is your patient going to pay directly using their debit card, or they are going to be paying through another payment method? For example, maybe you're going to be integrating PayPal on your product. Now, these are things you need to know. Another thing is your product actually direct to customers, or it's an enterprise thing? An enterprise thing means that, for example, I have a digital health app now, and I, as a patient, I come on board and I see the different um, health institutions that are registered on the platform, and I try to choose, okay, which of the health institutions that I want as a patient to attend to me. Or direct to customers, in the sense that I just come directly, then I'm able to book an appointment with a doctor, not even knowing which of the institutions, the health institutions the doctor is working in. So these are questions, these are go-to-market strategies that you would want to really put into consideration when you are building a digital health product. So just to rephrase, right? So you have to know who your users have. You have different types of users for digital health products. We have the patients, we have the doctors, we have the admins, we have a lot of people. Know these people, know their personas, know their user errors, know their outcomes, know all these things. Therefore, the technology, ensure that the technology is of quality and it is of high standard. Ensure that the interoperability is top notch. That is, information can be easily shared. That is the health record of your user, and your user also have to be in the know that yes, this so system can actually access my health record, because health is something that is very, very important. Then the next thing is regulations. Know the regulations around the health sector. Then know the go-to-market strategy. Who is going to be paying? Is it a direct to customers thing, or it is an enterprise kind of product? Like, is it a B2B or a B2C? Then finally, for today, I would actually say that the success of a product manager lies in the success of the product.
Yeah, so hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from anywhere you are joining. Opemipo, 16-year-old developer advocate. So I'm also a developer advocate as entry. It's a community for freelancers, entrepreneurs, creators, and developers, of course. So I'm also an IBM champion for 2020 and also a 2022 nominee. And also the winner of the technology under the technology category of the 2525 awards. So that's a bit about myself, and I'm just 16. So today I'm going to be taking you all through JAMstack accessibility for all developers, not just developers like AI developers, um, even literally everyone actually, because JAMstack is a web technology that's making the web pretty much more accessible and secure these days. So actually, this is what I'm going to be talking about right here, and I hope you are ready for this. Super excited to be speaking here. Funny how here is my first. This is the very first time I'm going to be speaking for a Google event. So it's literally my first DevFest session, and I'm super excited to be speaking here to everyone at DevFest Cafe. So I hope you are ready for this. Literally, I didn't make much slides. Um, I'm going to be taking you through CMSs, JavaScript frameworks, and the whole things about JAMstack. So it's literally something I'm looking forward to talking to you all about. So, what is JAMstack? Of course, whenever we talk about JAMstack, what comes to our mind? It's Jam. So, as developers, actually, it's it web technology that's like I said earlier, it makes the web pretty much more accessible, secure, and easier to scale, and it even makes the web pretty much more faster. So Jamstack is an architecture. From what we're seeing here, it's an architecture, web architecture actually designed to make the web pretty much more faster, secure, and scalable. So it depends on different tools. What are the tools actually in question? So the tools are the JavaScript frameworks used for Jamstack, like Next, Next, Vue, React, and the rest. So I'm actually still learning React. So funny how I've been into Jamstack for about a year or two now, and I'm currently Jamstack Lagos' lead. Yeah. So I'm the lead of Jamstack Lagos. Looking forward to creating an event for Jamstack Lagos very soon, probably around December or something. So actually, Jamstack is, like I said, it works based on the JavaScript frameworks, like the JavaScript frameworks used for Jamstack, like those Jamstack tools. Of course, we have Next, like I mentioned earlier, Next, we have Gatsby, we have Vue, we have Angular, we have React, of course, and then these tools actually are great tools we actually use for the Jamstack. Jamstack is pretty much making the web more faster. So the core principles of Jamstack are pre-rendering and decoupling. Understand, and it enables sites and applications to be delivered with greater confidence and resilience than ever before. Whenever you use these Jamstack tools, you get this confidence from nowhere that your website is going to be faster, secure. There is going to be lesser or slim chances of getting threats to your website, and sort of that, right? And so Jamstack is a software architecture and philosophy that adheres to the following components, right? So we have JAM, that's JavaScript, then APIs, then markups. So under the JavaScript, we have those different JavaScript frameworks, and the APIs, we have different API services, different platforms we can actually use for um, that can actually be supported with these Jamstack tools, right? We have Cloudinary and we have the rest. So, and also markup is something we really need to know. So, you being into Jamstack, you need to have a prior knowledge of what JavaScript is. Before diving into these Jamstack tools, you got to have different experiences on JavaScript and different JavaScript frameworks. So, let's move to the next slide. One of the things, one of the things actually, um, we Jamstack developers, I think the first thing, the key thing, of course, one of the key things, right? So I feel everything is key, but then like one of the key things actually, as Jamstack developers, one of the key things we really focus on is security. Of course, security owns everything. So we actually want to make our web application, we want to make things pretty much more secure for people to use. We want to have this, and for people to get into it should have about slim way of getting threats or damages into your website. You need to have this confidence about your web application or sort of that. You understand? So actually, security is number one. So the JAMstack, JAMstack tools, whenever I use them, you get, your website gets secure. Actually, it gets pretty much more secure. Actually, this is the second time I'm recording this. So I actually had a 30-minute session, right? So it's pretty much more stressful, like explaining this all over again. Yeah. So jokes apart, you know, whenever we talk about making the web more accessible, whenever we talk about the future of web, number one thing is security. These days we have there are vulnerabilities of or chances of you getting attacks into your website, getting damages, getting threats, but Jamstack is helping to solve them. So let's move on to the next slide. So we have scale. When we talk about scale, we mean scalability, of course. Um, you know, People really want to have this. Um, how do I say this? They really want things to be scalable. They want their web applications to be scalable. They want to have popular views, popular resources. They want to have things whereby they want to have actually they want to have moderate, or how do I say this? They want to have a scalable websites whereby it functions very well, this and that, you understand. So that's one of the things people really want to have. So Jamstack provide this by default. So it comes with Jamstack tools, it comes with Jamstack technologies, and then actually, these days most websites actually get hanged, or how do I say this? They get lazy loading. This lazy loading function actually it gets it basically because of heavy traffic, this and that. But Jamstack is helping to solve these things actually, and it's making the web very very scalable. Performance, like I just mentioned, um, you know, these days when we use Jamstack technologies to work, whenever we use these things, actually, you know, the performance of your website gets pretty much fast. So it's actually gets whenever you use these technologies, it speeds up the performance of your website, your user experience. It has a very huge impact on your user experience. These days, this um there's different tools these days, or how do I say this? This different. I mean, these different tools these days. I mean, apart from Jamstack tools, they actually, whenever we use them, they actually get pretty much slow. But Jamstack has helped with lazy loading a lot, and it's making web more faster. So I think we should up on to the next slide. Um, Maintainability. I think this is the last part of why Jamstack. So, maintainability. People really want to maintain their websites. They want to maintain their web applications. They want to maintain this. They want to maintain that. They really want to. Everything on the web is based about maintenance. Whenever we look at Facebook, whenever we look at this applications, whenever we look at these web apps, they maintain it a lot. And then with Jamstack, we have different tools these days that has actually helped with maintaining Jamstack sites. That's really helped in maintaining Jamstack sites. So this, I mean, this session really helps people want to dive into JAMstack, basically because you know people really have this misconception about web. Web is not moving anywhere in a few years. Um, Actually, with JAMstack, we've seen the future of web already. Apart from these things diving like coming up Web3 and this and that. So actually, JAMstack is a very huge part of the web that's making the web pretty much more accessible and secure than faster. And also portability. Portability is actually it's related to scalability actually. So I'm not going to explain a lot. And then preferably if you want to host the Jamstack website, I would actually say use either Netlify or Vessel. Those two actually help a lot. They really help and they are the best tools. I know. What makes up Jamstack? Of course, we can be looking. Okay, what's fun about Jamstack? What really makes up Jamstack? I know I've mentioned this or I've said this somewhere already. I mean, like I think I've mentioned this in another section. So here is my mood. If I really want to know what makes up Jamstack, because people are really curious about what's happening. What makes up Jamstack? What makes up Jamstack? JAM, that is JavaScript, APIs, then markup. Like I said, when we're talking about JavaScript, we meant JavaScript technologies or JavaScript libraries, JavaScript frameworks. We have React, we have Vue, we have Angular, we have Next, we have Next, we have Gatsby, we have there are many actually, there are many. So APIs, like I said, Cloudinary, we have there are different actually, and then for markup you can actually see them here. We have Gatsby, we have Ugo, and we have 11c then Sanity, right? So I'm going to be showing you the old architecture. Of course, we have the old architecture of Jamstack because it's not really it's new, but then it's kind of improving. So we have the old architecture of Jamstack, and then we also have the new architecture of Jamstack. So I'm going to be showing you all this in this video. Here on the left hand side, we have the old we have the old we have the old um architecture of Jamstack. So we had forms back then. Auth, we have analytics, we have secure sorry, search, we have personalization. You can just see this here. Back then we used traditional CMSs like WordPress, Drupal, we have Adobe Experience Manager and Sitecore and the rest like that. So right now, these days we have headless CMSs like Agility CMS, Stackbit, we have Contentful, we have Ghost, we have Dado CMS, we have there are literally many, and then we have CI/CD hosting, right? Like we have GitHub, we have Circle CI, we have AWS for the cloud, we have Google Cloud and the rest, right? And for payments, we have Stripe, we have many actually these days. So it doesn't just end there. And then let's move to the next slide. Go ahead to try it, no matter what. So right, we have static site generator. We have Google. Of course, like I mentioned, Google is actually another CMS, like headless CMS. We have Gatsby CMS. We have Gatsby CMS. We have um JKL. We have Noxt. We have many actually. So these static site generators are actually very helpful and they've helped with making the Jamstack accessible. Like I said, we have headless CMSs. We have headless CMSs, like I said. We have Stackbits, we have Graph CMS, we have Ghost, we have Craft CMS, we have Strappy, we have Sanity, we have Netlify CMS, we have Mongolia, we have Prismic, we have Storyblock, we have Dado CMS, we have Genetic Mesh, we have Contentful actually, we have Border CMS, we have Content Stack, and lastly, we have Agility CMS and many more. Actually, I worked for Agility CMS, so I was working there last year. If you get to know me very well, I was working there as a developer advocate too. So of course, learning never ends, especially when you're trying to learn a very new technology like this. Learning never ends whenever I'm talking about technologies like this. So I'm super excited I'm speaking here, and you can pick resources here. We have how to host and deploy a static website or a JAMstack application to AWS, S3, and CloudFront. We have a step-by-step guide, Gatsby on Netlify from Netlify. You know, it's from Netlify. I think Netlify also created another book earlier this year on Jamstack, right? And also building a blog from scratch with 11 TY from Filament Group. And then we also have how to host your static websites with AWS. That's a beginner's guide to doing that from Free Code Camp. We also have this Google tutorial, very popular, how to build a host and how to build a host very fast static e-commerce website. So I think this helps, and then you can also check this out too, the last one right here. So it's pretty nice having you all. It's pretty nice having you all, and nice speaking with you all here. You can reach out to me on all social media platforms. I'm at Coder of Lagos. On LinkedIn, I'm Opemipo Disu, and also check me out on Instagram at is at Coder of Lagos actually. And also we have Twitter at Coder of Lagos. So it's pretty nice speaking with you all right here. And love you all. Thank you very much. Reach out to me for more information. Well, then here, lastly, I'll drop my mail right here. Um, so actually, thank you very much to the DevFest Kefi team for organizing this. It's such a very great opportunity because it's my first time speaking at the DevFest event and the Google event. So thank you very much, team. Thank you very much, everyone. Nice speaking here, and looking forward to doing more stuff in the next coming years. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching this session. And can't wait to see you all get into Jamstack. If you have any questions, you can hop into my DM or tag me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or anywhere. And then thank you very much. It's pretty nice doing this. Bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Zalihat Mohammad. I am a data scientist at Turing, and today I'm going to be talking about A/B testing and why A/B testing is an important skill for every data scientist. So let's say you have a website and you want to, redesign a particular web page. Say, for example, the checkout page of the website. So in A/B testing, what you do is you don't just roll out that new page to users because you don't really know if it's better than the one you had before. So in A/B testing, the new version is the B variation, and the original one is what we call the variation A. So once you have the new web page, you then divide your users into half, depending on the kind of testing you want to do. So let's say you're just testing two variations. You divide your users into two groups, And this division has to be random, and the testing has to happen at the same time. So you then use your analytics tool to get your metrics. So a lot of people have different metrics. For ads, it might be the click-through rate. For e-commerce websites, it might be the conversion rate. So let's say, for example, you have this result here. So the A has 32% conversion rate and the B has 18% conversion rate. So merely looking at this, you can say that A is better than B. Then on the right, you can also see that we have two different variations, A and B, and B, you can say B actually performs better because it has more conversion rate. But what we do in statistics, we don't just want to, make these conclusions and say, okay, the new version of this web page is better than the old version. We want to be sure that the one that we are choosing is has better performance statistically. So why not just use the tools you have to, just look at it and say, okay, this one has better conversion rate, let's just go with it. Why do we want to perform this A/B testing? So the reason why you want to, change the web page in the first place is because you feel like you are going to help your visitors or your users solve a particular problem that they are facing. And once you do that, you don't have to, spend a lot of money on trying to get new users. You can leverage on the existing users that you have to, have better return on investment. The good part of A/B testing is the fact that, like I said, you're just rolling out this your new design to just a subset of your users, not the entire user. So let's say, for example, Netflix wants to, create a new version. They want to change something, maybe the positions of the movies, and they want to test if people are going to like it. They're not just going to, roll everything out to all the users. What they do is A/B testing, roll out to just small subset. So in this case, it reduces the risk, because if nobody likes it and everybody hates it, and then you have low conversion rate or low click-through rate, is going to be bad for business, and you might have to start rolling out, new version because you're not even sure why the whole thing isn't working. So it reduces the risk because you're just testing with small subsets. And there are a whole lot of reasons why you should, adopt this method of experimentation. So how do you now do this A/B testing? So the process is linear. The first thing you need to do is, conduct the research on how the website or the ad or whatever you're trying to, test actually performs currently. So once you have that, you also need to know how users, how the users of the website or the solution actually, how they behave. So that's one. You also need to collect data about the customer flow, the user flow. So once you have this, you've done this research, you understand how the thing works as the data scientist, you also need to, formulate your hypothesis. You can formulate this hypothesis by looking at trends using the data. So let's say, let me use this example. You have the e-commerce checkout page, and you want to redesign it, and you notice that the button for buy is not at the center, it's somewhere maybe at the top right, and you feel like the reason why, from your analysis, the reason why people are not buying, or people come to the website and not buy, is because they can't really locate the button on the page. So you can then make this create this hypothesis that bringing the button from where it currently is to the center of the page is going to increase the conversion rates, right? So you also need to, explain how this is going to affect the conversion, not just by saying that it's going to. So all these things are what you do during the hypothesis formulation stage. So once you are done with that, you then meet the designer or the developers, and you ask them to create this version based on your hypothesis. So our hypothesis is that we want to bring this to the button to the middle so that people can see it and click on it to pay or to buy. So in experimentation, there's actually another type of A/B testing called multivariate. So don't get me wrong, because I said you will just have A and B, it doesn't mean you can only test, you can only have two variations. You can have multiple variation, and that's the type that we call multivariate testing. So in multivariate testing, we might say that, okay, because we have large number of users, let's not just divide into two groups. Let's also test another version. Let's say we put the button not in the center, but at the right. So we now have two versions, one on the top right, one by the left, and one on the center. But in this case, let's just stick with A/B testing, which is having two variations. So once you have this, your designer and your developer comes up with this other variation, you can then move to testing. So before you run your test, you have to understand some certain things. You don't test on small number of users. You have to find the right amount of right number of users for each group, and you have to choose these users randomly. You don't, choose from a particular location because it might be biased, right? So you want to make sure that the whole process is randomized. So you also need timing is key. Timing, because you might be running A/B testing during sales, and you want to get a significant difference, which might not be possible because during sales, people don't really care about where the button is. All they care about is you're running sales and they want to buy. So they don't really care, and that might lead to bias. And for some, maybe like seasonality, because people tend to buy things during Christmas. That's why even though there's a hike in price of things, people don't care. They're just still going to buy it because they really don't have much option than to buy it. So you have to take note of these things. Then the duration of the test has to also be great, because say for example you are trying to run the test during maybe during the week, that's during the working days, and these are the times that people work. They don't really have time to start going to websites to buy stuff, and you want to use this as you want to use these results for the entire website. Might not really work because people buy more during the weekend. So it's just great to make sure that these calculations you get them right. I don't really want to go into details. And once you have done this testing, next thing is to analyze your results and draw conclusions. So once you have this conclusion and everything, you can then go to your stakeholders or the sales team and tell them, okay, this version is statistically better than this other version. So let's roll out this version to users. So this A/B testing is not just for websites. It's you can use this for a whole lot of things. So let's say you are trying to evaluate the performance of ads. You want to see how many click-through rates you have, and you can use A/B testing to just have to create one version of the ad, create another variation, roll out to two different groups or more, and then calculate the click-through rate and see which one performs better statistically. Then in social network too, they also do it. Then for drug testing, you want to test the impact of a particular drug. You don't just take the drug and start giving it to people. You have to test it on certain I think that those are the people they call lab rats, right? So they have to test them on the lab rats to make sure that it's safe before they give it to every other person. So that's all I have for now. I will be taking questions. Thank you very much for listening.